everyone. Welcome to DBC Pod, the Mandalorian bonus episodes. This is Jason Dodge, and with my broadcasting partner, Phil Schoen, with us. Phil, this is a couple days later than normal.
Yes.
We're recording this on is today Sunday?
It is Sunday, yes. I know your
Sunday,
days are, you probably lost all track of days with everything you got going on, but yeah, it is Sunday.
I've bought and sold a house, moved in somewhat, and it's a couple days later. In any case, this is chapter. Oh, what chapter is this?
I'm 15 overall. It's episode 7 of season 2.
There we go. So we just watched the Mandalorian pick up Bill Burr's character from a junkyard, which I really liked. I liked the imagery of it. The prison robot was really awesome. He just kept repeating himself, just like any other prison guard type of thing.
Right, especially if it was a robot who would just clearly here's what I'm programmed to do. So yeah,
exactly. You got to see the inside of Slave 1, which we've never seen before, other than the cockpit, which is really cool.
That was really cool to see how it rotated and everything, because it is a unique ship and how it kind of takes off and lands. So I was kind of jacked about it. The Star Wars nerd in me was psyched about it.
Oh yeah, I mean, you normally only see him in his cockpit, whether he's either facing up, but these, it looked like had some kind of gravity, not gravity stuff, but gyro elements to it. I don't know. It seemed like it was always balanced in the back rather than the cockpit. Okay, so not much happened in this episode other than some kind of shaping up the last episode of the season. I made a comment early on that he's just ready to go. We thought last week it was going to be a rescue episode.
Yeah, we thought the bulk of this would be to get Mayfield out, but then they kind of did a twist on that and got him right away. So it was more than what they needed him for, which was good that they explained why they wanted him, which, I was kind of questioning. Other than knowing that he was Imperial, I was like, okay, why specifically him? But at least they sort of explained that pretty well, I thought.
There was a lot of hand waving, right? Yeah. So them just going with Cara Dune and just picking him up, right, makes sense because she has access. He's not a really big, inmate type of person.
It does kind of show, though, how the New Republic is a little ragtag, though, that I guess this person who's just made Marshal is able to, no problem, walk in and take a prisoner, with no questions asked. So
right. I mean, there's that point, but there's also the point where he's not some super important,
right? Sure,
ex-Imperial. So any person that has a badge and confidence could probably walk in and say, "I just want this rinky-dink prisoner." Okay, fine. We don't really care. It's not they captured Gideon and he's in prison. Some Marshal's just going to walk in and work out with Gideon, right? So that makes sense to me. That to me, I'm oh. In the real world, if you had credentials, they were legit. Some droids or humans that were just running the place would be it's not my job. Okay, you have the credentials, cool. Take care. See you later. What I still question is ultimately he gave them, Mayfield gave them coordinates of a random planet where they can find a random little computer desktop in an officer's mess, and all you had to do was scan your face, put in a little stick, and hit a couple buttons, and that's all you needed to do. Did they really need Mayfield for that?
Well, I guess whatever. I don't know if there's anything on the stick that gave him access, or just if there was something he told them how to do it. But yeah, it definitely seemed like it was just means to an end and more about character development of Mando than the actual what the details of the plot were.
I mean, I don't mind Mayfield. I love Bill Burr character, right? It's awesome. I love the adventure that we had with him. He was what seemed to me a loss was you had Bill Burr, Mayfield, great character development. You heard about the history. You got little behind the scenes of what it's like to be a trooper and guys on the ground. And, he wasn't a trooper back then in the incident that they were talking about, but you kind of got a sense of the everyday person type of thing. It's like the oh gosh, what's the movie from the early 90s, late 80s, where they talk about the Death Star blowing up and all the
and Clerks. Yeah,
Clerks.
Clerks. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of get
Yeah,
that feeling, but actually non-comedic.
yeah,
I thought it was pretty good, and you kind of be like, officer versus ground troop type of person,
right,
and I like that world building. It was nice. You got to see an officers just like kind of hanging out, drinking, you know, talking about old times type of thing.
yeah,
I made a note here about the new republic is weak and we're growing stronger. They're eventually going to turn to us. I mean, like
right,
typically that's what fascists always think, right?
right.
Um, but again, good world
Yeah,
building
and gave a
on
little bit
that.
more color as to, I guess, a little bit what their plan was with, wanting the Redonium to cause more chaos and create, more need for them to call out. So similar to like what the Empire did and with Operation Cinder and stuff like that. So give a little bit more, like you said, background and story as to what the
Hmm.
Empire is looking to do out there at this time.
So, what do you think about the new stormtrooper outfits, uniforms?
Yeah, there were a lot of different ones. I don't know if it was just they had specific ones because of the planet they were on. It was kind of a jungle planet, so they had some of those that maybe fit that, or if it was just they're cobbling together whatever they have left. So I don't know. It's interesting though that there are so many different types, and even in that added a little bit of realism too when they got in. When once they made it into the building, and there were all those different types. Some people that looked like they were just sort of factory workers, and some low level executives and superiors, and then all the different types of stormtroopers. It kind of made it more real versus getting in there and just it's 800 people in the exact same white
Right.
armor.
So the transport troopers, have we seen those uniforms before? Because
So
the design seems very familiar to me, and I can't put my
yeah,
finger on
I
it.
think there's either been I don't know if it's the same or they've had similar in some of in Rebels or Clone Wars, but I'm not sure if they've ever been in kind of the main movies.
They have definitely not been the main movies. I could have sworn I've seen them in like a video game
It
or a
might have been,
comic
yeah.
or something like that. They look familiar. Though tan ones that
Mhm.
look like they're shaped almost like the speeder bike troopers from
Mhm.
like Jedi
Jedi,
look
yeah,
really cool. Um, some of them look like they were just like breastplates and a helmet type of thing,
yeah,
which I thought was kind of neat. It was more like what you would expect rather than a shiny stormtrooper outfit like the white ones.
right, right,
I thought it was pretty good. Another thing that I commented on was, and we're just going over details that I've noticed in my notes, not the overall plot, but it sounded like there was like an officer with a almost southern accent.
yeah,
Did I? That was weird.
yeah. They do that a lot. If you notice, like some of the officers and the idea of well, how he wants to control. I mean, it's almost to try to convey that he's like a southern plantation owner type thing. So I
Yeah.
think they use the accents to sort of convey that a little bit, and they've used that in a lot of westerns too, because you see people. This was clearly trying to go model after the western and almost like a
Hmm.
stagecoach robbery and stuff like that. So it sort of fit with that. So I think they did that on purpose to kind of convey that theory. But it is always interesting when you hear the different accents in Star Wars. Why do some people have like British accents and some have Southern
But
accents and stuff like that?
they've always had British accents, or just like mean, like stern
Yeah.
English or American accents, I should
Right.
say.
Right.
But I've never heard like a. Well, when I say American, I mean like I don't know. I don't need people tweeting at me that Southern's just real Americans, all that other stuff that can go with it.
Just
It's just like I've never heard of like a Southern accent with it, like calling people son. Like he called the trooper's son constantly. It was just
yeah.
I don't want to say it's weird, but it was just like not out of place either. But like because obviously officers would have different accents because they're being pulled from a lot of different
Different
worlds,
planets and
type of
stuff.
thing,
Yeah.
right? I know that just kind of stood out to me as something like, huh, I wanna note this. Okay, so overall, Phil, what did you think of the episode?
So overall, I mean, obviously, for bucketing these different episodes, this one would fall into the filler type episode. There wasn't a lot of plot development, really. Not too much advanced from last time to this one, other than now knowing, Moff Gideon's location, at least his current location. Um, but what I like in their filler episodes, they usually focus more on character development, and I think we got a lot of that, especially for Mando, and kind of just in general, the whole
Yeah.
question of kind of right and wrong, and who's that sometimes that's just your point of view, where you were born impacts your
Well,
point of
let me
view and stuff like that.
challenge you.
Okay.
let me challenge you on Mando's character development. Did we really get character development other than he cares about the child?
Well, I think that's all part of this story. Is that now we're, and at least that's the way I'm looking at it. We're leading into the final episode, which is that the final battle, and we've gone on this journey with him, not just the physical journey, but also his emotional journey as he's starting to learn there's more out there, and he's now not just kind of as a bounty hunter completing his mission. Even at the beginning of this episode, he was taking Grogu to a Jedi because that's what he was kind of tasked to do, not because he thought it was necessarily the right thing to do. It was what he was tasked to do. But now I think he's doing it more because obviously he has the connection to the child, and obviously he's bonded with him, but also because I think he's learning, you have this, what's right and wrong in the larger sense. And you have to, I don't know. I was talking to my wife a little bit about this. I think he's learning more. It's the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. And so I think that's what he's getting at. We've kind of come along on that journey with him, and obviously that was most symbolic by being willing now to take his helmet off and show his face a bit.
Yeah, I was just gonna see if I could bring you to that point, and you got there before me. I mean, the only character development I saw was the fact that he was willing to overcome the, I don't know, the principles of
Mm-hmm.
his Mando religion, whatever the
Right.
cult, the group, or what the following,
Yeah,
whatever,
the
whatever you
watch.
want to
Yeah.
call it. So, he's willing to see beyond what he was taught, which was cool, right? So that's character development in its own right. Um, but yeah, I mean, my overall impression of the episode, again, I'm thrilled anytime I see really good Star Wars. It was a nice little 30-minute like Star Wars story, right?
Yep.
There's stormtroopers, there's Imperial decor, people were getting shot, and there was a breakout and stuff like that. It was great. I liked it.
Yep.
I just think that you could have distilled that down a lot more and not necessarily needed all of that
Yeah.
to go through. But then I don't know what else you would have done with your time. So, if I'm I don't want to rate these episodes because they're all fun stuff. But like
Right.
I think you could have taken half of the episode time for the one from like what was it a few weeks ago when they were breaking into the other Imperial bunker or
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it, and then half of this episode breaking in and kind of combine the two in time, and then you would have a whole nother episode worth of other things.
Right.
I mean, there's a couple. This is the second time in 3 or 4 weeks where they went to Tython rather than adventuring to Tython. It just appeared, and the other storyline they have to break out Mayfield, and it just happened in like the first 2 minutes. So these guys aren't afraid of skipping the progression of these
Mm-hmm.
characters to get to the point. But I'm just really curious on what they choose to kind of dwell on to tell the story.
Right.
Because what's the story of this episode? There's no story. It's just like we found where Gideon ship is.
Yeah, I think that from a plot standpoint, it's they wanted to find where Moff Gideon was, and they did. I mean, that's it. Like it obviously could have been done a lot quicker if they just hit on those points. So to your point, what they were focusing on was, I mean, the title of the episode is The Believer. And so I think it's kind of focusing on why do you believe what you believe? And is it, where you were born and what you were raised to do and all those sorts of things? Or is it, do you believe in doing what's right and what's good? And, I think the
But
whole
we
idea of
already
being able
knew,
to sleep at night and that sort of thing.
yeah, but we already knew that Din was going to go after the child, right? He was going
Mm-hmm.
to, give away who he was to save this person that he's bonded with,
Right.
this child that he bonded with. We got a lot of character development of Mayfield,
Mm-hmm.
but now he's just wandering off into the desert.
Yeah.
It's like, you got a sense that potentially they could be, I mentioned this while we were watching the episode, that they're building like a Dungeons and Dragons party, right? You've got, the warriors, the rogues, the thieves, like, this, like there's people with roles. They're building a
Mm-hmm.
crew. And if you asked me last week, they're going to get Mayfield and add him to the crew, so he's going to add like another skill set to go rescue the child. I would say, yep, they're going to posse up and they're going to go off and do another thing. But he left him and he's gone.
Yep.
So, the crew, the Magnificent Seven. Some people were saying on the internet, like, they wanted to get like they were even saying this last season too, where Mandalorian's going to get a whole group of people together, and it's going to be like his party, as part of like
Right.
Lord of the Rings party, like they build up a crew of people to go save the world type of thing,
Yeah.
and
The Avengers or whatever.
exactly. But they're not doing that. Bill Burr's gone. Cara Dune's probably going to go away too because she's not really needed, but she's probably going to stick around anyway to save the kid, so to
Yeah.
speak. And then you got Fett, which is great. So let's hang on Boba Fett for a while. He looked pretty awesome. He cleaned up his armor a little bit.
Yeah. A nice matte paint job and looked really good. And I think you mentioned during the episode that his sight thing on his helmet looked new and stuff like that. So he's definitely been spending some time with the armor, upgrading it and refreshing it.
And I really like what they did. Like last week, he looked like he had a little tiny piece of armor, and he's just kind of wearing it.
Hmm.
And this week, he once right off the ship. It was just like the armor fits him now.
Yeah.
Like the costume was really well done. It looks like it's nice and shiny and new. It fits his physique and his build. Obviously, he's been lifting for the last 10 years or 5 years or whatever it was when he was in the Sarlacc pit. So that looked really good. I also like how he wasn't really showcased in the episode, right? Because you expect him to start stealing the show.
Right.
Because he's probably still the most famous Mandalorian, even though maybe after this
Yeah.
season he might be the second most famous.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and that was actually one thing that I heard people commenting about this episode. Which was one thing that was nice was it was very focused on Mando, on Din Djarin, whereas the last episode, obviously, that he was part of it, but he was knocked out for part of it. There's obviously everything going on with Grogu, and then
mhm.
um, Fennec and Boba Fett were kind of the bigger parts of last episode. So it was nice to get back to an episode where he is the focus of it, and obviously, he's the Captain America or whatever, the leader of the Avengers. That's going to take us into next episode. So it's good to kind of refocus it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't think they were ever going to make the mistake of making Boba Fett the center of attention.
Hmm.
They toyed. I think the rumors were they were toying with his own series, which is probably what led to the Mandalorian in the first place.
Right.
Probably behind the scenes, who knows? But I think that they made a good choice by allowing Boba Fett being a secondary character
Hmm.
or supporting character, I guess, to the Mandalorian because it's his show, obviously.
Right. Right.
So at the end of the episode, we got a nice threatening voicemail from
Right.
Mando to Gideon,
Yeah.
and a couple things that were. Did you notice Gideon's reaction? What was?
Yeah. Well, if you notice, that was the exact same speech Gideon gave in episode 7 last season to Mando when he was outside the cantina or
Oh,
that
was
building.
it?
It was a
Now that you
word
say
for
that,
word.
yes,
It
it
was word
was.
for word the speech. So I don't know if Mando just has a really good memory or whatever, but it was like word for word
Huh.
that same speech. So it was neat too because it was sort of role reversal, right? In the last season, Moff thought he was in the position of power when he gave that speech, and now Mando's pushing it back on him, like, no, I know where you are. I'm coming to get you. I'm giving you this warning. Be ready.
It sort of rhymes.
Yeah.
So I kind of
It's
like
that
that.
famous quote from George Lucas, right? It's like poetry that
Yes.
rhymes.
It's like poetry. I liked how he presented himself. It was threatening. He's coming for him. I just think like it's going to be such a silly episode that there's going to be a ragtag crew of what four people.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think that's kind of the big speculation is it just those four? Are they also going to get griefed? Are they going to go get Bo-Katan? Are they going to, who are they going to get? Because it does seem like that's not enough to go get them.
No.
So I guess I don't know if that's going to be part of the episode or if I guess the way it's going now they'll just be there at the beginning of the episode. Like, oh
Right.
yeah,
So
we picked them up. Like, okay,
well that's the point. Like,
yeah,
you have suspected that they were going to take this episode to build the crew to go after Gideon. Like they would spend like maybe the first 10 minutes to get the coordinates and run
right,
away, and then we're going to need help because they were going to decipher the information. Like, oh, he's on a cruiser. We can't do this with 5 people or 4 people.
yeah,
This is what we need. So let's go get more people. But nope, he's going to have a party, and then they're just going to be like, all right, here we go. Because they have to dedicate, if there's going to be a confrontation between Mandalorian and Gideon, him with his dark saber, and Din with his,
Beskar spear. And
big giant spear. I don't know what you want to call it as far as a weapon type, but like spear, I guess, whatever, right? Bow staff, quarterstaff, whatever it is. Um, they're gonna have a fight, and then obviously Mandalorian is gonna win because Mandalorian's not dying because he has a season 3 that's already in
right.
the works. Like, he's gonna be there, and they're not. I don't see them getting rid of Grogu at this point, right?
No.
As a character, because he's intricate to like everything. He sells the most merchandise.
Right.
Now, I did say this about the Razor Crest too, and a week later it's gone.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
don't
I
think.
mean, I think he could also win and not die, or lose and not die. I think this could be, it's the second season. It could be the Empire type movie where it ends on, to quote Clerks again, it ends on a downer, where maybe he doesn't really get Gru back. Maybe there's some advancement and he damages Gideon and finds out more about the plot and stuff, but they don't really fully succeed. And that
I see. I don't. I
season
don't know
3.
about that. So let's think like where they're gonna go with season 3, right? Are they gonna? I very much doubt that they're gonna have another season where the big bad is Gideon and they're gonna avoid him and all this other stuff, right? Are we? Is this show forever about chasing Gideon? He's always gonna be the bad guy, so he's always gonna escape. He's always gonna do something, or
Yeah.
they're gonna take his character and ultimately like he either slinks off and runs away, he's permanently hurt, or he dies or something. But like we're coming down to an ultimate confrontation to get back the child, Grogu,
Hmm.
and you know, or you're gonna have a cliffhanger of like what Grogu is gonna be type of thing over a whole year. I mean, does
Yeah.
that really entice fans to want to get to season 3? Because it's going to be, all right, we got another season where you get in, and he's going to go get the kid. I got to sit through all this again.
Well, no, I mean, it definitely needs to build from there. It can't just be that he
Right.
gets away in that. I mean, obviously, we still also have whoever Grogu talked to when he was on the stone. So does some Jedi
Right.
show up next episode? Maybe that's the cliffhanger at the end. He's not able to get him back this time, but then
That's a good point.
a Jedi shows up, so that's the main plot for next year. I don't know. Um, but yeah, no, I agree. It has to build. It can't just be like, okay, well now we're going to do the same thing we tried to do this time again, but you have to wait a year. It's going to have to build and have some sort of climax that makes you anticipate the next season as something bigger. Obviously, this season built off of what was season 1, so it'll have to keep progressing.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
don't
we'll see.
see them. Yeah, no, for sure. I don't see them basically. Gideon is the bad guy every single season. He always manages to escape, or he manages to, outthink Mandalorian and flee. And like in the next year, we'll see what kind of predicaments Gideon puts himself next, and how the Mandalorian helps it. And it's just like we don't. I don't want that. Show's kind of dumb too.
Yeah.
Then it becomes like a sitcom and not like a an epic journey type of thing. So next year they have to have. I think next season, you have to have a new plot, right? It's got to be searching, or the Empire's squeezing in on him, or maybe explores, a non-Republic, non-Imperial kind of timeline.
Right.
I don't know. What do you think? Where are we going to go next week? Are we going to have the ultimate confrontation with Gideon?
I don't know. I mean,
Uh,
part of me doesn't want it just to be like, oh, well, Gideon was actually secretly working for someone the whole time, and ha ha ha. Like, it kind of would be nice if Gideon is like the big bad for the Mando show, but for something has to make it realize that he's bigger than we thought he was, and maybe he has a bigger fleet, or something with the, what I assume we're going to see more with the Dark Troopers and stuff like that, or
mm-hmm.
something with, maybe the Dr. Pershing was able to do something now that he's had Grogu, and we see
Oh, that's a good point.
them injecting that into Gideon or into somebody else, and all of a sudden somebody had inherited force power. I don't know.
Well,
There's
that's it.
yeah,
You hit the nail on the head right there. It's like, okay, Gideon is just like now a mastermind Imperial moth right now, right? Like
right.
and he's got his stuff. He's going after the occult, quote unquote, right, with the Force,
Hmm.
and maybe in his desperation, he injects himself with like some midichlorians. He's like, I'm gonna take this midichlorian pill and be powerful, and maybe he fights. He gets beat up. the new force kind of saves him, but it also wrecks him, and then he flees. Whatever, right? That's how he gets away with the force because he does something. Whatever. That at least gives next season to be like, oh no, now the whole thing is now he's becoming a Sith force user, right? We gotta go
Something,
stop
yeah,
it. And whatever Jedi that they contacted, he's now one of their main characters for next year because now they're going after a force user type of thing.
something like that, yeah.
So I can see how in order for Gideon to stay, he cannot be the same as he was.
He almost has to like upgrade himself or something. But.
Right, like the not the goals, the stakes of the season need to increase if the characters stay the same.
Right.
Or Gideon just dies and everything is whatever it is, and then next season it de-escalates like we have a de-escalation between season 1 and season 2.
Right.
And he has a simple journey of like, let's say a Jedi doesn't even show up. He goes after Gideon. He doesn't do anything with silly force powers. He's just, Imperial, and he gets shot, and they save the kid, and they go off. And at the last thing, Grogu basically goes unconscious, and you get the feeling that he's talking to the same person he talked to, like on the stones type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's your cliffhanger. Like, oh, he's talking to a Jedi. So like the whole next season is not about chasing Gideon or avoiding Gideon or looking through Gideon's passion to find the kid anymore. Like that's gone. It's now like trying to find a place for Grogu.
Right. Well, and then I think we also need to keep in track, and I know we're going to talk about it more on our regular weekly podcast, but with all the new Star Wars material that Disney announced at the investors presentation, 2 of the new shows, Rangers of the New Republic and Ahsoka, are taking place in the Mando universe timeline and everything. So, some of what gets built through Mando can also then extend it to those shows. And I could also see them, maybe at the end of those, they might be limited series. At the end of it, there's almost like a big movie with all 3 shows coming together or something like that. So that'll probably play what happens with some of these characters. Do they go into some of those other shows and things like that needs to get built out.
They got to keep it local. They can't go grand because the sequels ruin everything.
Right.
You cannot. Dave Filoni has to learn his lesson, and he can't create another Ahsoka.
Right.
Because Ahsoka was never in the sequels, and these characters that they're building up, these major flashpoints and events, if they become major flashpoints events, were never discussed in the sequels. Not that the sequels discussed anything anyway, but if there was like a major power shift, like at least they would have told us a little bit about the history between. I don't know. I'm going on a tangent at this point. We're about to hit the 30-minute mark, and I think that's a good place to end this. Any other things that I might have missed that you wanted to bring up about this episode?
No, I mean, I think there were some good lines. I laughed when when they're talking about who's going to go in, and Boba's like, I think they might recognize my face.
Yes,
since obviously every original Stormtrooper looks exactly like him, and so that was good. And I think one other character development that I saw was once Matt Din took his helmet off, he seemed so not confident, right? He was like flubbing his line, like he didn't know what to say, and blah, blah. Whereas when he's got that mask on, that almost like gives him his confidence. So I thought that was a little bit interesting to follow as well, and what really makes him who he is, and how he needs to build up his confidence as himself, not as just as a Mandalorian. So
that was Star Wars is all about heroes and villains wearing masks and helmets. Something that we all know about, especially in the Last Jedi, where Kylo Ren bashes his helmet because you're a child. What are you doing still wearing another thing? So anyway, one of my least favorite episodes this season. Still enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah, it's always like I've seen a lot of people doing that where they kind of rank it, and it's like towards the bottom, but it's like, even a bad Mando episode is still really good.
Exactly. It's like I loved watching every minute of it,
and it might be the second worst episode, but whatever. Yeah, but it's still great.
Yeah, of course. So we're gonna try to get this out tomorrow, and then record our normal episode again. A day late. I think we did that last week as well.
Yeah.
So excuse me, forgive me, but there's a lot to talk about, and we're gonna have a great episode next week. It's gonna be a news-heavy and reactionary type of podcast.
Yep.
We'll go from there. Thanks for listening, everybody. and have a good one. Take care.
Take care.